I saw this movie once when I was 10. Like, I played the game at my friend's house, like, probably 10 times in my life. I thought this movie was, like, pretty sweet when I was 10.
Oh.
That's it.
So you're just a fan of bad movies.
No, not at all. This is just a movie I watched as a kid. And I think that as far as bad movies go, it's pretty darn enjoyable. I think if you're any younger than me and you can't really, like, appreciate that campy 80s, 90s style through the lens of, nostalgia glasses, you're not going to appreciate it. It's just going to be bad. My kids would not enjoy this movie. But the reality of it is, my kids don't enjoy a lot of the stuff that I did when I was a kid. Like, they don't even enjoy Princess Bride. I thought Princess Bride was great until I watched it next to my kids and watched them, like, tune out and get bored, because the cold, hard truth is that, Bolt is a much more entertaining movie than The Princess Bride is.
Do you think, are they into Home Alone?
My son made it through Home Alone. My daughters didn't care. So it was shocking for me how many, like, 90s kid movies have very, very boring adult themes to go along with them. Like, as a kid, and I was a bit of an older kid by this point, I really enjoyed Hook. But now that I'm an adult and I go and I read the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, a lot of which are archived from back when that movie came out, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that this movie got absolutely panned because it's... Wow,
nice.
Great pun. I totally didn't mean to do that.
Nice.
It makes sense the movie got panned because it's totally random and stupid and way too long for adults. And then for kids, it's like... why is the main character this, like, business executive? They don't even understand, like, what's going on. Like, there's like 25 minutes of character development before you even land in Neverland.
I think part of
honestly, I totally get what you're coming from with Hook, because I've loved that movie as a kid, and I think the music in particular is really good. But
So
I'm
good.
scared to watch it as an adult.
It's not good.
They tried too hard to make a
wanna say-
four-quadrant movie. Four-quadrant movie
wanna
being like, it's good for kids and adults, like
Yeah.
every demographic.
And they didn't make it.
And I just want to say that I totally see where you're coming from now, Linus. Like, if I came in knowing that this movie was the campy, tongue-in-cheek thing that it is, I feel like I definitely would have enjoyed it more. But yeah, what were you going to say, Dave?
I just think that the nature of the way that we watch movies has changed so much. Like, in the 90s, you only had a certain amount of VHSs, and those are going to be on loop however many times you're watching these movies. Whereas
Happy
now,
Gilmore,
like,
baby.
the kid gets to decide whatever they want, whatever's on Netflix, whatever's on Disney Plus, they get to pick. And so it has to be so much more attention grabbing than movies were in the 90s, where, like, yeah, you have Hook on VHS and it's one of 8 that you have. You're going to watch Hook over and over and over and over until you're forced to love it.
Have you seen a toddler watching any kind of content on a touchscreen and watch them scrub ahead when they get bored? So creepy. So scary. So dystopic.
Pretty much everything a toddler
you shouldn't be
does
able
is
to
creepy,
do
though.
that, man.
And my kids, I think there's probably like a half a dozen movies that any of them, all 3 of them put together, have ever rewatched. Frozen 1, Frozen 2 off the top of my head, and not much else.
Wow.
Really?
There's
Because I don't think that's typical.
Well, we don't watch a ton of movies and a ton of TV in the first place, but they will it's always something new. Always something new. Whereas when I was a kid, there's movies like that I look back at now and I'm like, Oliver and Company, not a great Disney movie, actually. But as a kid, I watched it over and over and over again because, like James said, I only owned like 20 VHSs total.
I didn't say that, but
I mean,
whatever.
To be fair,
Same thing.
To be fair, I know people with kids whose kids watch the same movie and over. Like Frozen is every kid has seen Frozen a million times. I mean, girls especially, but.
Linus, do you find with your kids, I wonder to what extent the reason kids don't like older content or may not like it as much, I guess a lot of it has to do with pacing and stuff and how
Totally.
stimulating it is, but to what extent is it resolution? Does that matter? When they're just
No.
watching like a 90s movie, it just kind of looks like crap?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I was just trying to think of an older movie that they actually really enjoyed. I kind of want to fire up my Plex here because that might jar my memory. The movie I was thinking of was actually Night at the Museum, so that's not as old as I thought it was. That's 2006, and there's a big difference between mid-90s movies and mid-2000s movies. Another one that I didn't think of before, but that they totally couldn't get through was Free Willy. I love that movie as a kid. Watching it as an adult, I'm like, holy crap, this is an adult movie, but like there's a whale in it to keep your kids shut up while they eat their popcorn next to you. And it's not a good adult movie. Like it's just a bad
I think
movie.
Yeah.
I used to watch a ton of movies as a kid, but I think that I was just playing and I would look up at the parts I liked and then I'd go back to playing.
Yeah. Honestly, like when you're a kid watching these movies, it doesn't matter. Like the only thing that matters is that there are distinct parts that you're like, oh, cool, or like draw your attention in some way. Like I don't feel bad if I find out that some of these movies that I loved as a kid, like Hook, are actually bad. I'm like, oh, okay, fine, they're bad, but like I loved it because I watched it 18 million times. And John Williams' score is to die for.
And Robin Williams is one of the most charismatic people in history. So
Oh yeah.
Too bad he
Can't
was never
blame
in Lord of the Rings. Just
Too bad
joking. That's just my
Gandalf. I
segue.
want Robin Williams as Gandalf.
That's just my segue into telling you guys that this episode is coming to a close and that next week we are, in fact, going to be starting off our saga of Lord of the Rings, the trilogy.
You guys aren't going to do the Hobbit movies too, are you?
That is up for debate.
yeah, that's rough.
Subscribe to find out.